Om Shiva Chidambaram. Namaskaram to all. We are continuing the Nayanmars series. Today we will talk of Poosalar, the great saint who built a temple to Siva in the heart, which outshone the great temple of Kailasanathar at Kanchipuram. Now, this story is found in the Periya Puranam, which is usually dated to about 12th century, though the tales come from an earlier time period, and probably the Puranam is also older than that. The so-called dates of our Sanskrit texts tend to be very politically influenced, and most of them are inaccurate. They are too late. However, be that as it may, this is the story, and it's a pretty magnificent story, and it has some interesting things for us. Those of us who are in yoga, it has certain interesting connotations, so that is why I would like to speak on it. Now, the story goes that there was a Pallava king. Pallavas were extremely prosperous, and they launched this grand wave of stone temple building in Tamil Nadu. They were prosperous because they had enormous trading with Rome and things like that. So there was this Pallava king. Let me get his name correct. Kadavarkon. His name was Kadavarkon, and he had created this grand temple in Kanchipuram, which is the capital. Kanchipuram is a little distance away from Chennai, about 2 hours, 3 hours away. It's a sea town, and he was going to do the Kumbhabhishekam. He was going to do the consecration of the temple. Now, if you've seen, the temple has been identified as the Kailasanathar temple at Kanchipuram, and it is one of the artistic and architectural wonders of the world, not just of India. It is just a most magnificent temple, and it should have been one of the great Saiva shrines, but that is not how it happened. So what happened was that when he was planning to do the Kumbhabhishekam, Siva appeared in his dream and told him, "You have to postpone it, because I am not going to be here with you on that day. I am going to another devotee who has built an even grander temple. He's also got the same date, the same time for your Kumbhabhishekam, and I am going to be in his temple." Now, this, of course, the Pallava king was completely shocked. Like, first of all, that there is a greater devotee than me, and secondly, that somebody has built a grander temple than me. And if you've seen Kailasanathar, you will understand that shock. It is just quite another level of temple architecture and art. And also there are many niches for meditation. Like I said, it should have been one of the great Shiva Kshetrams, but it didn't happen so. So what I like about these stories in the Periya Puranam is, whenever somebody thinks that they are somebody high up in the social hierarchy, thinks that they are somebody very important, they get knocked down by Shiva, and they immediately accept their mistake. They immediately accept that they are not as great as they think they are. So the king immediately says, "Who is this great bhakta? I must go and meet him." And he says, now again, he says he's a temple pujari called Poosalar, and he's in the town of, this is again a town close to Chennai. This is Tirunninravur, which is quite close to Chennai actually. So he rides he rides the whole night. The king rides the whole night to see this magnificent temple at Tirunendraur. He reaches there and he asks for the temple. Nobody can tell him anything. And he tell me who is Poosalar. And he goes and he knocks at the door, and Poosalar comes out. And he says, where is this magnificent temple you have built? Shiva is coming to your temple's Kumbhabhishekam and refusing to come to mine, so I need to see this magnificent temple. The poor man is aghast because the king has come all this way to see him. And then he explains what happened. He was a great Shiva Bhakta. He had an intense desire to build a Shiva Kshetra, build a Kovil for Shiva. And he did not have the resources. So what he did is he created it in his imagination. He sat and he visualized it exactly as if he would have built a grand temple, and he took the same time. He chose an auspicious time for the temple to launch it, lay the foundation stone, build it. So for many, many, many years, he held that mental image in his mind. He constructed it as if you would construct a temple in real time. Now this is a yogic feat that is pretty unbelievable. This is a feat that is, because what is happening here is the sheer power of concentration, focus, holding the image that clearly. And please understand, visualization is not just about being able to picture something. Visualization is also about the emotional quality that you can bring to it. So you need this strong ability to visualize. You need a strong ability to focus on what it is that you are visualizing, and you need a strong emotional connection to it. And the emotional connection to it is actually the most important part. So what is important about this is, here is a rule of the mystical and the occult world. Nothing can manifest in the physical dimension unless it is already created in the occult, in the astral dimension or the pranic. Something has to be created in the astral dimension before it can manifest in the physical dimension. So Poosalar created this magnificent temple in the astral dimension, and for great beings, for great devas, there is no difference between a physical temple and an astral temple. In fact, they would probably prefer the astral temple. And the other thing that it is one of the rules of mysticism is that the physical manifestation will always be somewhat inferior to the astral perfection. What is created astrally will be always of a superior quality than what will be created in the actual physical dimension, which is the Platonic ideal, the notion of the Platonic ideal, where qualities exist in an ideal form and then they manifest through us and in our environment in a reduced manner, or even sometimes in a defective manner. So what he had done was, he spent many years, almost a decade, in visualizing this temple and building it up exactly as he would build up a physical temple. And finally he chose a sacred day and he decided to do the consecration, he decided to do the Kumbhabhishekam. And the poor Pallava king was put into second place. And I think his grace in accepting that his devotion and his resources and his power did not match this act of mental and emotional visualization, this creation of Poosalar in his heart. The heart is where the emotions reside, and it is called as the temple of the heart. Again, I don't want to mistake what it is called, so I'll tell you exactly the name of the temple. Hridayalishwara temple. Hridayalishwara temple, the Lord of the heart, Lord in the devotee's heart, the Ishvara in the heart of the devotee. And one of the funny side effects of that, I don't know if it is funny or if it is natural, is that people with heart disease go to the temple, and even doctors who treat patients with heart disease go and pray in the temple that they will be successful. Which I suppose is sympathetic magic, like calls to like. Now, the important thing here is, one, you may be externally a great bhakta with great resources, you have all blessings of God, and then somebody nondescript and unknown may actually be a greater devotee, may actually be spiritually more advanced than you. And that is usually the case. The people who are in the public eye are usually not of the top tier. The top tier spiritual people are usually out of the public eye. So we should be very careful in how we evaluate spirituality, because we never know who is actually ahead, and there is always somebody ahead. Secondly, for a great deva like Shiva, especially for Shiva, the quality of intention in how one practices devotion is very important. So it is said that Poosalar not only built that temple and consecrated it, he would do puja in his temple of the heart every day till he died. And then after he died, he went to Kailasa and he was accepted as he was taken to Kailasa by Shiva, and he lives permanently, resides permanently with Shiva in Kailasa. So it is not that he created this temple and that was it. No, he did daily puja to that temple of the heart. And years later, the Pallava kings were so impressed by this achievement that they actually created a small physical temple there as an external scaffolding for the real temple, which is the temple of the heart. And uniquely, the devotee Poosalar himself is also worshipped along with Shiva over there, because the temple resides within him. The external temple is not the real temple. The real temple is the temple that resides in Poosalar. So now, my worry about a story like this is immediately people will think, oh, my internal devotion is all that matters. Why do I need to go to an external temple? I will build a temple inside me and that will be enough. And it may be so. I wouldn't be too sure. If it is so, we are sure that Shiva will make sure that that famous act of bhakti will come into the public domain. You're saying it won't do. Yeah. Very often people have this thing of we are beyond rituals. Poosalar didn't have the money for an external temple, which is why he created the internal temple, but he didn't stop doing the pujas. Even if it was an internal temple of the heart, he did all the daily pujas as if it is a real temple. So if Poosalar can do that and he can do the puja with ease, then we should also follow his instruction, his example, and continue. And the other thing I really like about it is how the king does not argue, he does not dispute that there is a superior bhakta. He does not say, how is it possible I have made this fantastic temple? And just go on Google and key in Kailasanath or Kanchipuram and you'll understand. So the blow to his sense of self and ego must have been enormous. Now, why Kailasanathar has not become a very great Shiva Kshetram, I do not know, because the Shivlingam there is massive, the Prana Pratishtha over there was done quite well. But there is a certain quality to these overwhelming temples where somehow or the other the sort of ego of the person constructing it seeps into it, and then the temple does not become as great as it should. And there are niches built for meditation paramparas did not take up the space. They did not start up the meditations there, which should have been what would have made the temple grow. There are multiple complex reasons. The Kanchipuram has over 3,000 temples, but the most famous Shiva temple is the Earth Tattva, Ekambareshwara, not Kailasanathar. Kailasanathar should have been at least as famous as. Now, the Hridaleshwara temple is close to Chennai also. It's much closer to Chennai than Kanchipuram is to Chennai. It's a little outside of Chennai. So this was a very unusual story in the Nayanmar canon, because usually the stories of the Nayanmar are about physical activities, like about Kannappa Nayanmar, they are all things that transpire out in the world. This is the first purely mystical internal story. It is entirely a pure Adhyatmic story. I mean, if we consider the Pallava temple as the external part of it, we could. But it's a very, like I said, the stories of the Nayanmars in the Periya Puranam are stories which really cause you to think. They make you consider, okay, so what are my assumptions at play here? What are my certainties, and are they valid? Anybody could be forgiven for thinking, who is as great as me? Look at the temple I have built. And then somebody sitting in a nondescript temple somewhere, in a nondescript village somewhere, creates a mystical temple, creates a temple of the heart, creates a temple at the astral dimension, and you are thrown into the shade. So Shiva likes such things. He likes such conclusions to spiritual stories. So this is the story of Poosalar and the temple of the heart. Sarvam Shivamaya.